Hey there, my name is Megan and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my January wrap-up. In the month of January, I read 6 books, which is absolutely perfect because my goal is to read 5 books every month. And if y'all did not see my January TBR video, I started a TBR jar, so I will link that up in the cards. So I picked from my TBR jar, and it gives me prompts for which type of book I should read. So I actually did stay true to my TBR prompts, except for the YA duology. I did not get to my YA duology, but all the other prompts I did stay true to. Now let's just get on into what I read in January. The first book I read was The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. This I got for Christmas, and I had brought The Burning White by Brent Weeks with me on vacation over the holidays, and I finished it, and I wasn't expecting to finish it, so I didn't bring another book with me, so I went ahead and just started the First Law trilogy, and I really like this trilogy. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It took a while to get going. The plot is definitely very slow burn. We spent a lot of time getting to know the characters and their backstories, and it was about halfway or more than halfway before all of these characters came together and we kind of saw what Abercrombie was doing with the plot. This book revolves around a corrupt political system. In this kingdom, it is ruled by a king, but the king is not really involved in the machinations of his policymakers. He is more figurehead and he doesn't really care, and you can see that his government is being run by very corrupt businessmen, and I found that to be really interesting. So I'm really excited to see how the corruption of the government plays into the plot of this story. So all in all, I really enjoyed the series and I will be continuing on. The next book I read was a middle grade novel, and that is Saving Fable by Scott Rankin. This book takes place in a fantasy world populated by characters, and authors choose characters to star in their stories. Indira, for her whole life, has worked towards being a protagonist, so when she finally gets accepted to protagonist preparatory school, she is absolutely devastated when she finds out that she's only going to be a side character in a story. But while she's at protagonist preparatory, she uncovers some secrets and some not so good things going on with her professors and what they're doing with the students in regards to these stories. I thought that this was a really cute middle grade read. It did read, in my opinion, on the younger scale. Even for middle grade, I would recommend it for maybe ages 8 to 12. I think for older kids, they might not get as much out of it, but I really did like the themes. The themes were a lot about friendship, about being true to yourself. There was a theme about not treating people differently because of their social status. For example, Indira is looked down upon and treated differently because she is a side character and not a protagonist. So I really liked that our author was able to bring in social issues of treating everybody equally, regardless of what group they're with in school. I ended up giving Saving Fable 3 out of 5 stars, and it is currently in my classroom for my students to read. The next book I read was The Pelican Brief by John Grisham. In this book, we follow a main character named Darby Shaw, and she is currently a law student. In the book, 3 federal justices are murdered, and Darby Shaw starts to investigate on her own time who might have done these murders, and she writes this brief and calls it the Pelican Brief, and it gets into the wrong hands, and Darby Shaw has a target on her back, and people try to start killing Darby because they don't want this brief getting out to the public and the truth being told. I thought this book was just okay. I listened to it on audio. I found that the story was not nearly as complex as I thought it was going to be. I felt like the story was more about the reporters trying to get the story out than about the conspiracy of this business owner knocking off justices. And for that reason, I was a bit disappointed. I just think personally that John Grisham is not an author for me. I really don't like his writing style. I find it very simple. I find that the characters really don't have a lot of depth, and if you add in a story that's really not that engaging, then the book just overall isn't a good book. Really, all I can say about this book, it was just okay. If I had physically read it, I probably would have DNF'd it, but listening to it on audio helped me get through it a lot quicker. So all in all, I gave The Pelican Brief 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read in January is Starsight by Brandon Sanderson. This is a YA sci-fi. I do have a full spoiler-free review for Starsight, so I'll link that up in the cards if you're interested in checking that out. I really enjoyed Starsight. I thought it was a very strong sequel to Skyward. We get a lot more expansion of the world. We get a lot more understanding of how the humans ended up on Detritus and what they did and why the rest of the galaxy hates them. We learn about the politics of this world, and we learn about the corruption in the political atmosphere of this world. So all in all, I thought this was a really good sequel, and I felt like it did everything it needed to for a continuation. And after that cliffhanger at the end, I cannot wait to delve into book 3. The next book I finished in January was This Mortal Coil by Emily Suvada. This is a YA science fiction novel, and this is a reread for me. I ended up rereading it on audio. This is a futuristic world where a plague known as Hydra has killed off a lot of Earth's population, and the remaining people live in bunkers that are run by this corporation called Cartaxis. We're introduced to our main character, Kat, and she is the daughter of Lachlan, who was the man who created the vaccine for Hydra. However, Lachlan hid this vaccine so that Cartaxis could not have access to it because he thinks that they are going to only give it to certain people. In order to save the vaccine, Kat and a man named Coil, who used to work with her father, head across the country into Canada to try and figure out how to access this vaccine and how to get it to the world. I actually had the same exact opinion of this book when I reread it as I did the first time. I thought that the science part of this book and the futuristic technology was really, really cool and really, really well done. In this book, people can be genetically engineered, and they have basically computers inside them that can change their genes, and it's just really, really cool. It's a world that I've never really been immersed in before, and I found it really, really interesting and really, really intelligent, so I absolutely loved that part of this book. The things that I didn't like were the romance between the two characters. I did not like Coil. Not that there was anything wrong with him. He was a fine protagonist. I just found him to be very boring and very generic, and just one of those big macho men that has to like protect the girl at all costs, and every time she gets a scratch on her, he like freaks out. So I really don't like that type of male protagonist, so their romance was just very cringeworthy to me. I really could have done without it. I also found the writing to be very repetitive at times. There was towards the end of the book where something happens when they try to get the vaccine, and Kat keeps saying to herself, "It's all my fault, it's all my fault." And that internal monologue is repeated over and over and over again. So the writing is very repetitive, and I'm hoping that Emily Suvada does become a better writer as she continues to publish and write books. So I gave This Mortal Coil 3 out of 5 stars. The last book I read in January is A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Bridget Kemmerer. I also have a spoiler-free review for this book, so I will link that up in the cards. I felt like this was a strong sequel to A Curse So Dark and Lonely, but alas, I didn't like it as much because we only had Gray and a new character, Leah Mara's perspectives. We barely got any of Ren and Harper, and I really wasn't a fan of how Ren was portrayed in this book because he was honestly portrayed as like a raging jerk. And I really didn't like that because I enjoyed him in the first book. However, I did like learning more about Gray and being inside his head and understanding his internal conflicts. I really did enjoy that aspect of it. I thought that that was really well done, and I'm really happy with the way the book ended and that cliffhanger because it really does provide more context to why Ren was acting the way that he did, and it really makes me wonder what's going to happen in the next, I think, 2 books. I gave A Heart So Fierce and Broken 4 out of 5 stars. That is all the books that I read in January. If you have not already subscribed to my channel, please hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon so you'll be notified every time I post, and I will see you soon in another video. Goodbye.